What if you had control over things no human has ever controlled? What if the wind itself moved at your command, carrying you across lands in moments? What if armies stood before you, not just of humans, but of jinn and birds, all waiting for a single word from you? It sounds unimaginable, almost like something beyond this world. Yet for one man, this was not imagination. This was his reality. This man was Prophet Sulaiman, alayhi salam, a king unlike any other in history. Allah blessed him with a kingdom that no one before him had ever seen, and no one after him would ever fully experience. His authority was not limited to people alone. The wind obeyed him, carrying him swiftly wherever he wished to go. The jinn worked under his command, building, creating, and fulfilling tasks that no human could accomplish alone. Even the animals understood him. Birds communicated with him, and he understood their speech as clearly as any human language. It was a kingdom that combined the seen and the unseen, a power that reached beyond the limits of ordinary human beings. Imagine standing in his place, vast lands stretching beyond the horizon, armies lined in perfect order, strength, wealth, and authority beyond measure. Every command followed instantly. Every need is fulfilled without delay. For most people, even a fraction of this power would be enough to change their hearts, because power has a way of doing that. It slowly enters the heart, whispers to the ego, and begins to reshape how a person sees themselves. This is where the real story begins. Because the greatest test is not always found in hardship, sometimes it is hidden inside blessings. While most people think losing everything is the hardest trial, there is another kind of test that is far more subtle, far more dangerous. It is the test of having everything. Sulaiman, alayhi salam, did not live a life of struggle in the way many others did. He was not tested with poverty or weakness. Instead, he was given control, authority, and dominance. And with that came a different kind of pressure, not the pressure of survival, but the pressure of staying sincere while everything around you feeds your ego. But here is what made him different. Despite everything he had, Sulaiman, alayhi salam, never saw himself as powerful. He saw Allah as the source of everything. When others might have said, "This is mine," he said, "This is from my Lord." When others might have taken pride in their strength, he lowered himself in gratitude. His kingdom was not a source of arrogance, it was a reminder of responsibility. Still, a question begins to rise. What happens when a human being is given that level of control? Can anyone truly hold such power without being affected by it? Can a heart remain pure when the world bends around it? Because even the strongest people can be tested by success in ways they never expected. And that is where the hidden test begins. Not in losing power, but in living with it. Because all it takes is one moment, one small shift, one distraction, and even the strongest can feel the weight of what they carry. And for Sulaiman, alayhi salam, that moment was closer than anyone realized. To understand the weight of Prophet Sulaiman, alayhi salam's test, you have to first understand the nature of power itself. Power is not just something people use, it is something that slowly shapes them. The more control a person has, the easier it becomes to forget their limits. And when there are no barriers, no resistance, no one to question you, the ego begins to grow in ways that are difficult to control. Sulaiman, alayhi salam, lived in a reality where his commands were never delayed. If he ordered something, it was done. If he desired something, it appeared. The wind carried him wherever he wished. Armies of jinn worked under him without hesitation. Birds and animals moved according to his direction. This was not just authority. This was near absolute control over the world around him. Now imagine what that does to an ordinary person. Most kings in history were given far less, yet even they became arrogant. They forgot their purpose, oppressed others, and allowed power to blind them. When humans are placed above others, they often begin to believe they are above accountability as well. They stop seeing themselves as servants and start seeing themselves as rulers without limits. This is the danger hidden inside blessings, because hardship reminds you of your weakness, but power can make you forget it. And yet, Sulaiman alayhi salam was not like other kings. Despite having everything that could corrupt a human heart, he remained grounded. He did not see his kingdom as something he owned. He saw it as something entrusted to him. Every blessing, every power, every command that was fulfilled instantly, he traced it back to Allah. His heart did not attach itself to the power. It remained attached to the one who gave it. This is where the real test becomes clear. It is not difficult to be humble when you have nothing, but can you remain humble when you have everything? Can you control your ego when the world is already under your control? Can you remember Allah when there is nothing in your life forcing you to remember Him? These are the questions that defined Sulaiman alayhi salam's reality. His test was not loud. It was not visible in the way hardship is. There were no clear signs of struggle from the outside, but inside, the trial was constant. Every command he gave, every moment of authority, every sign of power was a chance for pride to enter his heart. And pride is not something that announces itself. It grows quietly, slowly, until it becomes part of who a person is. But Sulaiman alayhi salam fought against that. He reminded himself again and again that this was not his kingdom, it was Allah's. He understood that the greater the blessing, the greater the responsibility, that power does not elevate a person unless they remain sincere, and that even the strongest king is still a servant of Allah. Still, the presence of power does something subtle. It creates comfort. And comfort can lead to heedlessness, a moment where the heart becomes distracted, even if only for a short time. Not rebellion, not disobedience in the way people imagine, but a slight shift in focus. A moment where something else takes priority. And that is where the hidden test begins to reveal itself, because it is not always arrogance that causes a fall. Sometimes it is a distraction, and for Sulaiman alayhi salam, that distraction was closer than anyone could have expected. There are moments in life that seem small on the surface, moments that pass quietly without anyone noticing. But sometimes those moments carry a weight far greater than they appear. They reveal something deeper, something hidden within the heart. And for Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, his test did not come through arrogance or open disobedience. It came through something far more subtle, a moment of distraction. It is mentioned in classical explanations that Sulaiman alayhi salam once became occupied with reviewing his horses. These were not ordinary animals. They were strong, beautiful, and prepared for strength and movement, a symbol of power, readiness, and control. As he observed them one after another, time began to pass. What started as attention slowly turned into absorption. His focus deepened, his mind remained engaged, and the moment stretched longer than expected. And then something happened. Time moved forward, and a moment of remembrance was missed. Not out of rejection, not out of rebellion, but out of heedlessness, a temporary distraction of the heart. This is what makes this moment so powerful, because for most people, missing a moment of remembrance does not feel like something serious. It happens often, and it is brushed aside without much thought. But for someone like Sulaiman alayhi salam, whose heart was deeply connected to Allah, even a small shift in focus carried weight. It was not about the action itself, it was about what it revealed. There is a deep contrast here, a king who controlled armies, yet was momentarily overtaken by something as simple as attention, a man who commanded the wind, yet experienced a pause in remembrance. This shows something important. No matter how strong a person is, no matter how close they are to Allah, the test of the heart never disappears. It only changes form. For ordinary people, distractions are everywhere. But for someone like Sulaiman, alayhi salam, even a single distraction became significant. Because when your level is high, even small slips matter. Not because they define you, but because they refine you. And then came the realization. It did not take long. It did not need external correction. His own heart recognized it. The moment he understood what had happened, something shifted inside him. The weight of that realization was heavier than the distraction itself, because when a heart is alive, it does not ignore its mistakes. It feels like them. This is where most people are different. Many continue without noticing. They move from one distraction to another, allowing moments of heedlessness to pile up without reflection. But Sulaiman, alayhi salam, did not allow that. He did not justify it. He did not ignore it. He confronted it immediately. There is something powerful about this. Because the true strength of a believer is not in never slipping, it is in how quickly they return. It is in how deeply they feel the distance, even if that distance was brief. Sulaiman alayhi salam's test was not about falling. It was about awareness, and that awareness led to a response. A response that was not ordinary, not casual, not something done out of habit. It came from sincerity, from accountability, from a deep understanding that even the smallest distraction matters when your heart belongs to Allah, and what he did next would show that his power had not blinded him. It had made him more aware. The moment Prophet Sulaiman, alayhi salam, realized what had happened, everything changed. It was not the kind of realization that passes quickly, the kind people feel for a second and then forget. This was deeper. It struck his heart in a way that made him pause, reflect and respond immediately. Because when a heart is truly connected to Allah, it does not ignore even the smallest distance that forms between them. He did not look for excuses. He did not say it was just a moment or it was not intentional. Instead, he held himself accountable. This is what separates true faith from ordinary belief. Many people measure their actions based on how big or small they seem. But the people closest to Allah measure their actions based on how they affect their relationship with Him. For Sulaiman, alayhi salam, this was not a minor distraction. It was something that required correction. There is a powerful contrast here. Most kings, when they make mistakes, hide them. They protect their image. They continue forward as if nothing happened. Their pride does not allow them to admit weakness, even to themselves. But Sulaiman, alayhi salam, was not like them. His strength was not in maintaining an image. It was in maintaining sincerity. It is mentioned that he turned away from what had distracted him, not because those things were inherently wrong, but because they had taken his focus away from what mattered most. This shows a deep level of awareness. He understood that even permissible things can become a problem if they pull the heart away from Allah. And so, instead of holding on to them, he let them go. This is not easy. Letting go of something you enjoy, something that holds value, requires more than discipline. It requires clarity. It requires a heart that knows what it wants and, more importantly, what it fears. Sulaiman, alayhi salam, feared the idea of being distanced from Allah, even for a moment. That fear was stronger than his attachment to anything else. And this is what defines true faith. It is not just about doing what is right when it is easy. It is about correcting yourself when you realize something is wrong. It is about choosing Allah over everything else, even when that choice requires sacrifice. Sulaiman, alayhi salam's reaction was not delayed. It was immediate, because he understood that the longer a person waits, the harder it becomes to return. There is also a deeper lesson hidden in this moment. Power did not protect him from mistakes, but it did not trap him in them either. Instead, it gave him the opportunity to show something greater: accountability, humility, awareness. These are qualities that cannot be forced. They come from within, and they are revealed through actions. Many people think that having more control over life makes things easier, but in reality it increases responsibility. The more a person has, the more they are expected to manage, including their own heart. Sulaiman, alayhi salam, managed both. He controlled a kingdom and he controlled himself. And between the two, controlling himself was the greater achievement. His reaction was not loud. There was no public display, no dramatic scene. It was quiet, sincere, and immediate, and that is what made it powerful, because true correction does not need to be seen by others. It only needs to be accepted by Allah. And in that moment, Sulaiman, alayhi salam, proved something important, that even with all the power in the world, his heart remained a servant, that even with control over creation, he remained under the command of his Creator, and that when tested, he did not fall into pride, he rose through humility. Because in the end, the greatest kings are not those who control others, they are the ones who control themselves. After that moment of realization, after turning away from distraction and correcting himself with sincerity, Prophet Sulaiman, alayhi salam, did something that revealed the true nature of his heart. He turned to Allah and made a dua. But this was not an ordinary dua. It was not just a request. It was a reflection of how he saw power, responsibility, and his relationship with Allah. He said in meaning, "My Lord, forgive me and grant me a kingdom that will not belong to anyone after me. Indeed, you are the bestower." At first glance, these words might seem surprising. Asking for a kingdom greater than anyone else could sound like a desire for more power, more control, more dominance. But this is where understanding becomes important, because this was not the dua of a man chasing status. This was the dua of a prophet who understood the weight of what he was asking. Look at how he begins, "My Lord, forgive me." Before asking for anything, he seeks forgiveness. This shows humility. It shows awareness. It shows that even after correcting himself, he still turns to Allah with a heart that does not feel entitled. He does not assume that his actions are enough. He asks for forgiveness first, recognizing that true success begins with being right with Allah. Then comes the request, a kingdom unlike any other. But this was not about pride, it was about purpose. Sulaiman, alayhi salam, knew that the power he had was not for personal gain. It was a tool, a means to establish justice, to spread truth, to show people the signs of Allah in a way that no one else could. His kingdom was not built on ego, it was built on responsibility. And by asking for something unique, he was asking for a role that would stand as a clear sign for humanity. There is a deep contrast here. Worldly kings seek power to elevate themselves. They want to be remembered, admired, feared. Their focus is on control over others. But Sulaiman, alayhi salam's focus was different. He wanted a kingdom that would reflect the greatness of Allah, not his own greatness. He wanted a blessing that would serve a higher purpose, not just satisfy personal desire. And Allah granted his dua. He was given a kingdom that no one else would ever have. Control over the wind, authority over the jinn, understanding of animals, and a level of power that was unmatched. But even with all of this, his heart did not change. He did not become arrogant. He did not forget who he was. If anything, his humility became even more evident. This is what makes his story powerful, because it shows that asking for something big is not wrong, as long as the intention is pure. It shows that power itself is not evil. It is how it is used that defines its value. Sulaiman, alayhi salam, did not fear power, he feared misusing it, and that fear kept him grounded. There is also another layer to this. By asking for a unique kingdom, Sulaiman, alayhi salam, was also setting a boundary. He was ensuring that this level of power would not become a test for others in the same way, because not everyone could carry what he carried. Not every heart could handle that level of control without falling into corruption. His DUA, in a way, protected others from a test they might not survive. And this brings us back to the core of his story. His test was never about whether he could gain power. It was about whether he could remain sincere while having it. And through his actions, through his correction, and through his DUA, he proved that his heart was not attached to the kingdom. It was attached to Allah. But even with all of this, there is still one question left. What does this mean for you? When you step back and look at the story of Prophet Sulaiman, alayhi salam, it becomes clear that his test was never about weakness. It was never about loss, poverty, or suffering in the way most people imagine trials. His test was something far more subtle, far more dangerous, and far more relevant to your life than you might think. It was the test of control. Because most people believe they would stay humble if they were given more money, more influence, more authority. They think their faith would remain strong, that their heart would stay connected to Allah, that they would use everything for good. But the reality is very different. Even the smallest amount of power begins to change people. A little authority, a little recognition, a little control, and suddenly the ego starts to grow. Sulaiman, alayhi salam, was given what no one else was given: control over the wind, authority over jinn, a kingdom that responded instantly to his command. And yet his greatest achievement was not controlling all of that. It was controlling himself. Because what is the value of ruling the world if you cannot rule your own desires? What is the point of commanding armies if your ego commands you? This is where the real contrast becomes clear. You do not control jinn, but you struggle to control your anger. You do not command the wind, but you cannot control your words. You do not rule a kingdom, yet you find it difficult to stay consistent in your acts of worship. This is not to shame you, it is to make you think. Because the test of Sulaiman, alayhi salam, exists in your life too, just in a different form. Your power may not look like his, but you have influence, you have choices, you have moments where you decide between what you want and what Allah wants. And in those moments, your true character is revealed. Just like his was revealed in his moment of distraction, yours is revealed in your daily actions. There is another important lesson here. Power does not create character, it exposes it. If someone is humble, power will reveal that humility. If someone is arrogant, power will make that arrogance visible. Sulaiman, alayhi salam's heart was already pure, and so when he was given power, it only made his sincerity more evident. But for many people, the opposite happens. They appear humble until they are given control, and then everything changes. That is why his story matters, because it shows you what is possible. It shows you that a human being can be surrounded by power, yet remain grounded. That a person can have everything, yet still see themselves as a servant of Allah. That strength is not measured by what you control outside, but by what you control inside. And this brings you to a question you cannot ignore. If you were given what Sulaiman, alayhi salam, was given, would you remain the same? Would your prayers stay consistent? Would your gratitude remain? Would your heart stay connected to Allah? Or would the comfort, the control, and the ease slowly pull you away? The truth is, you are already being tested, not with a kingdom, but with your daily life. With your time, your choices, your priorities, every moment you choose between remembrance and distraction, between patience and reaction, between sincerity and showing off, you are facing your own version of this test. Sulaiman, alayhi salam, passed his test not because he avoided mistakes, but because he corrected himself immediately, because he never allowed power to blind him, because he never forgot that everything he had came from Allah. And that is the lesson. The real question is not what Sulaiman alayhi salam had. The real question is, what are you doing with what you have?